Hey guys, welcome back to the engine. Today we are working on this beautiful S1000RR. What are we doing? We're going to do the chain sprocket change for this BMW S1000RR. And this is what it comes with. So you've got the chain here, which we will have a look at in just a minute. You've got your two sprockets. So you've got the smaller sprocket inside here, pretty good packaging. You've got the smaller sprocket inside here, which is coated in black. Nice. Advanced heat treatment, premium sprocket. We'll keep this to one side, move this box, and this is the rear sprocket that we have. The 45 teeth, brand new shiny sprocket. This will be fun to install. And then this is the chain. Comes well packed in grease so that there's no corrosion or anything. That's about that. Now here are the tools that you will require to do the job. Out of your bit box, you need a TX30 bit, and you need the necessary attachments to make this bit work, a ratchet, an extension, and so on. You need a 34 hex socket for the sprocket and the rear axle. You need the necessary attachments, whatever you can get to get those to work. You need a 18 mm hex socket for the rear sprocket nut. You need these two special tools, which are torque wrenches. You need something that will go from 40 Newton meters all the way up to 150 Newton meters. I've got one that goes from 60 to 300, and I've got another one that goes from 10 to 50. That will cover both of the jobs that I am going to do. You need a hammer and a chisel. You need this. This will be helpful to break the chain loose once you've cut it off, and mainly you need it for the front sprocket holder plate to straighten it and bend it again. You need a 10 mm and a 13 mm spanner to adjust the chain tension once you are done. The last special tool that you will need is a chain riveting and braking tool. These come in various different formats and different ways that you can get them. Whatever one you get, you will need the necessary tools to make this work and the instructions to make that work as well. If you can get your hands on an impact wrench, this will make your job very easy to open the rear front sprocket. If you don't have that, you will need a big extension bar, something to hold the rear wheel in place, and a bunch of other tools. But this is what, if you can get it, nothing like it. So this is what we are going to do. This is your chain. As you can see, it's very corroded. There's not a lot of kilometers on the chain, but because of the corrosion, the chain has gone bad. So you have to replace the chain. We always change the chain and the sprocket as a set, because the teeth on the sprocket, they bind with the chain. These teeth, they bind with the chain and they wear together. If we put a brand new chain on a worn out sprocket, the brand new chain is going to wear out faster. If you put a brand new sprocket on an already used chain, that sprocket is going to wear out faster, or the chain is going to wear out faster, whichever is the weaker of the two. So we always change it as a set. That's my point, right? So what do we have to do? We have to get this sprocket out. To get this sprocket out, we'll have to get the wheel out. We need to replace this chain. Your front sprocket sits inside here. So this cover has to come out, behind which there's the front sprocket. For that, we'll have to move this shift rod out of the way. So we're going to just open this one bolt, move the shift rod out of the way, and get to that front sprocket. The whole thing obviously gets cleaned. We will be taking the rear wheel out to do the rear sprocket. That already has to come out because this is going to get a general service done. So yeah, let's get that started. Okay, so this is your protection plate that sits here, and you can see the amount of grime that is following there. This little metal piece protects your casing in case the chain snaps and damages the casing. If that happens, you rebuild your engine. So before we do anything, the first thing that I like to do is to get everything loose. So we've got the rear axle loose. We have to get the front sprocket loose while the chain and everything is on the bike, because if we don't do that and the chain is off, this is just going to keep spinning freely, right? Now this, if you look closely, it has a special lock washer. So this little metal piece is holding the nut in place. This has to be hammered and straightened out, right? So I'm just going to use an old flat screwdriver to. Now that that is straight, we can go ahead and get the nut off. This is going to be at a very high torque value, plus it gets heated, plus it goes through a lot of motions, plus it's a lock nut. So it's going to be very difficult for you to get this nut out. Let me just see what size socket it is. Okay, this is a 34 mm socket, right? I use a pneumatic impact wrench to do the job. That makes my life very easy. Can you do this without this? Yes, you can. You will just need an exorbitant amount of force. If you do that, the possibilities of you damaging other parts increases, so you have to be very careful, but it's not impossible to do. That's my job done. Takes 2 seconds. People who are going to try this on your own, I would love for you to put it in the comments if you're doing it manually, how long it takes for you to do. We would like to replace this washer with a new one when we put the chain sprocket back on. Unfortunately, BMW don't have it in stock and it is exorbitantly expensive. So what we are going to do is, this comes with multiple different sides where you can pinch it on. We've used one side. We generally try to, if the washer has been used more than 2 times, then we cannot reuse it, but since this has only been used once, we can use the other end of the washer to use it for the second time. We'll obviously clean this before we do that. The next step that we have to do is to get the chain out. As you can see, the chain loops behind the frame. So if you want to get the chain out as a one piece, we'll have to get the whole swing arm assembly out. Even then, we will not be able to do it, because if you look at it, it passes from inside the swing arm. So this chain has to be cut and the new chain has to go on as a 2 piece and then get joined, right? Now there are multiple ways that you can cut the chain. You can just cut the chain horizontally and have it in 2 different pieces. What we are going to do is, we have to push these pins out of the other end and this separates the chain, right? You get special tools to do that. What makes the job really easy is if you grind the head of these pins, so that makes it very easy for the pin to get pushed out. So I'm going to grind the head of these pins, and that will make sure that once I use the pushing tool, it's going to make it very easy. So we've got the whole frontal area nice and clean where we can install our brand new sprocket. The sprocket is not symmetrical. You've got a spacer on one side and a flat on the other side. The flat goes on the outside and the spacer goes on the inside. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a very slight touch of grease . Now is where of the tricky bits really start. All of what you've done till now are small little things which don't really impact the future of the motorcycle, but now everything that you have to do has to be bang on perfect, right? So we've got our chain. This chain has to be passed through the motorcycle. So I am now going to do is just put it on the sprocket. You can pass this however you want, whatever way you seem fit for you to pass the chain. Spinning, if I put it from the rear sprocket, then I can spin the rear wheel to feed the chain, so that makes my job a little bit more easier. That's about that. Okay, now this is exactly how we want it. So important point, I forgot to mention it, I just did it from muscle memory. So once the wheel and everything is off, what you want to do is, these are your axle chain tension adjusting bolt, right? You want to loosen it and you want to put this bolt as far forward as possible, which means make the chain as loose as possible, because what is going to happen is your new chain is going to be much shorter than your old chain. So if you keep it as it is, the chain's ends are not going to meet when you put it on the sprocket. So you loosen it, put it all the way forward, it makes it easier to put the axle in, put the chain together, and then you can just tension it later once the chain work is done. So quick lesson on how a motorcycle chain works. This is what a link looks like. You've got your outer plate with 2 pins going through it which are riveted in place. You've got 2 O-rings there. You've got grease that sits on these. You've got 2 O-rings for the other side, and then you've got a plate that will go on top just like so. So this pin goes inside the chain. There will be a bunch of grease here, goes inside the chain like so. You've got 2 other O-rings on the other end, and then you've got the backing plate to go from that. So grease on the pins, grease goes inside here as well. You cannot, it's not possible for you to do too much of this, so whatever way you seem fit, just take the grease, shove it in. Now we take a rivet pin, seat it so, and just push it in. A bunch of grease is going to splut out, just take some, put it on the other end. And then our backing plate, the backing plate has a smooth side and has a flat side, has a curved side and a flat side. The flat side goes in, curved side goes out. Now you need special tools. This cannot be fitted by hand, so you will need special tools. You need special tools to squeeze it. You need special tools to flare the ends of the rivets to make sure that this chain is tightened and closed. If you are doing it, make sure you have those special tools. If someone else is doing it, make sure they have those special tools. The last thing we want is for your chain to snap mid-ride. This is a chain pressing and riveting tool that I have. There are multiple versions of this available in the market. You can get whichever one you want and then follow the instructions of that specific tool. What we want to do is press the plate. How much do we press the plate? We use a vernier caliper to measure the width of a factory riveted plate and then keep pressing our plate till that width is reached. So as you saw, I measured that plate, that came out to about 20.22 mm, and we'll keep pressing our plate till we reach the same width. So let's measure again. We are at 20.11 and the stock plate was at 20.2. So I think we are quite good with that. So now we have our chain link pressed. It's to the right specification as the other links. This is your rivet pin. As you can see, there's a hole inside. What we want to do is we want to flare this out. So once it flares out on the outer side, it will prevent this plate from coming back out. That's how your rivet pins work. To do this flaring, we use another special tool. This tool is from DID, the chain manufacturer. You can get you can get multiple versions of this. This is what we will be using. So this goes and sits on top of your on top of your rivet link, just like that, and once you squeeze it, the inner chamfer on the inside flares this pin out so that that pin cannot come out. That's what we are going to do now. That is perfectly seated on top of the link. Now I'm going to tighten this. You need a spanner or an adjustable spanner to hold the outer hub in place. This is how a perfectly flared end of the rivet should look like, all around the corner, perfectly chamfered on both of the rivets. So the next thing that we want to do is adjust the chain tension. On most liter class super bikes, you've got a flexible swing arm. So what happens is you set the chain tension and then you tighten the swing arm, and then you realize that the chain tension has changed because the swing arm flexes. So what we want to do is we want to tighten the rear axle to the correct torque value, measure the tension, loosen it again, adjust it, and then tighten it again, and then measure it again. Pretty straightforward to measure this. You take your tape measure and keep it anywhere. You put it to the bottommost position, take a reading as you can. This is right now what I can see it as at 75 millimeters. Move it at the topmost position and I can see it's at 25 millimeters right there. So 75 minus 25 is 50 millimeters, which is what we want. Right? The flex is out, and as you can see, there's almost no tension, no slack in the chain. This would be okay for a track motorcycle, but let's still measure where we are at. So if we measure, we are right now, if we go to the bottom, not tensioning it, it's about at 59 something, and if we go up, it's about at 46 something. That's 13 mm of slack, not enough. So we loosen it back up. Loosen it back, and as you can see, the tension has increased, right? Now what we do is loosen this setting so that we get some free play. Match the same setting on the other side. As you can see, there are markers here next to the spacer, and all you want to do is count the markers, make sure the spacer on the other side is on the exact same marker. Now you have a long threaded bolt here. What you can do is measure the length of that bolt. That's a 37.8, and measure and match it on the other side, and that's also at 37.885. So that tells me that the alignment on both the sides is roughly the same. All swing arms will have some way of telling you what alignment, how to align it properly. Will have some markers or the other, and you can use them to get the right ballpark. As long as it's not out by more than 5-7 millimeters, it won't make a big difference. Getting it perfectly precise, it's not that difficult to do. All of that taken care of. Now all we have to do is torque everything down. The rear wheel torques at 100 Newton meters. So that's 100 Newton meters. Rear wheel is torqued. Front wheel torques at 145 Newton meters. So that's a considerable amount of force. You will need someone to hold the rear wheel really tight. Use the rear brake if you have to. Do not put it into gear, do not put it into a transmission, and that will just end up rotating the engine. Someone holding the rear wheel is going to work just fine. So as you can see, we've bent the locking washer. What that will do is, if by vibration or anything, if the nut comes off, that will ensure that the nut does not spin off and your sprocket does not come off and your life ends in a miserable accident. The only thing left to do is the rear sprocket torque. Now we'll go ahead and do that in a star pattern. The rear sprocket is torqued at 70 Newton meters. So 70 Newton meters for the torque sprocket. For the axle we are at 100, and for the front sprocket we are at 145. That's everything mechanically done. The wheel spins much more freely than the previous chain was on. Now it's just time to close everything back up. This goes back like so. There's a socket inside the protector cover for this particular wiring. so make sure you put it back there. These cover bolts are torqued at 8 Newton meters. So the time for the quick shifter to go back on. The quick shifter bolts take a little bit of Loctite on the threads, so we do one for the top, more for the bottom. There's a washer that sits behind the shifter, so bolt, washer, and that's it. These are torqued at 10 Newton meters, so
Your fucking hands.